I hope it's next year, but I'm not that naive.
And my second part of my question, I guess we'll put Dr. Hewitt to work. We wanted to know the effect of atmospheric pressure on stents, things like scuba diving. It's not my question, but I like it.
To my knowledge, there's never been any study that's subjected stents to atmospheric high pressures. If you were to hold a stent in your hand and try and squeeze it, you'd see that it takes a fair amount of pressure to squeeze that stent closed. They're fairly rigid. You know, one could start to think about how does scuba diving affect the distensibility or the collapsibility of veins themselves. I couldn't answer that question.
I have a question. I bought a few months ago a machine, and I call it my giant vibrator. It is you stand on it, and it shakes your body, whichever part you want. And I bought it mainly because I have too much fluid in my arms, so the toxins have to be released. So it works fantastic for me. But another thing it does too, it tones muscle. And I'm very serious about it, it does. Now, you were thinking me of that when you were saying you're going to the gym. So you have to start somewhere. So what is simpler than when I need to do my arms, I'm on my knees, lay my arms on the platform, and I do it for 10 minutes, only 10 minutes at a time. If I want to do my whole body, like after a hard night of work, I do my whole body for 10 minutes. You can do it up to 3 times for 10 minutes a day. But it tones you. And that's what we all like. So is that okay? Because my daughter, Katerina, has tried it. And she says, oh, Mom, it doesn't feel right in the head.
Okay, well, there's several different things. When I was seeing a woman with MS in South Africa 2 years ago, I saw my first ones of these machines you stand on, and they put a high-frequency vibration through your legs. And it fires the muscles. And she would limp in there with almost no ability to stand up. And she would be improved in 20, 30 minutes. These are all over the country. Physios are using them. Physical trainers are using them. Sometimes it's massage therapists. Some of them have a real place for firing muscle. And we have it being used in some of the athletic training world.
Yes,
to fire these. Yeah. Especially in Europe. I mean, the ones I'd seen were out of Holland. Strong affiliation with South Africa. But there's some Canadian models too, or well, used in Canada. There's quite a spectrum out there. You want to go with somebody who knows what they're doing, a kinesiologist or somebody who completely understands it, and then they've got a real place. I mean, in my book, I talk about workout by being in an infrared sauna. Well, I've got a buddy, he's in a wheelchair from his MS, and he can now work out in the infrared sauna. How? The infrared rays will penetrate 1 to 2 centimeters through the skin and improve the blood flow because it warms the skin surface, and the cardiac output or flow increases. I've always been looking for a place I could sit on my butt and do a workout. But each of these has a place. And I try and talk about them in the book. I hadn't thought about putting that one in the revision of the book, but I'm going to need to, I guess. But you know, each of these has a place in the recovery rehab path. They won't be comfortable for everybody, but they're exceedingly safe, and they certainly won't shake out your stent. Just as we're talking about MS and pressure, the question was regarding scuba. But one of the very brilliant fluid engineers from the UK, his wife has MS. Her MS seems to improve if she goes to a high mountain or she's flying in an airplane. I suspect in some of us that change in atmospheric pressure to make it lower, it may improve the flow somewhat.
You've been waiting forever.
Yeah. Thanks. Because I've seen a phlebotomist for longer than I've had MS, and I have had 2 veins stripped in my left leg. Probably saphenous, and is there an extra saphenous or?
If you have venous insufficiency in your legs,
right.
It
so
typically affects your great saphenous and your small saphenous.
Okay, so I've had both those removed. So when I have angioplasty,
Plus.
because my blood flow right now that I'm fully restenosed again is really, really low. Does that change the blood flow, having all those veins removed?
No, actually, venous insufficiency, excuse me. So in your legs, everybody knows what a varicose vein is. A varicose vein is caused because in many cases there's a valve at the top of a vein called your great saphenous vein. It courses down the middle of your thigh. And if that valve becomes insufficient, this is sort of where CCSVI comes from. If that valve becomes insufficient, the blood in your leg just pools there. That pooling leads to higher pressure, little veins become big veins, and we get varicose veins. Having that vein removed is nothing, to be honest with you. It's been stripped. We use lasers and RF energy to remove it from people with varicose veins all the time. Removing that vein does not affect the veins in your neck whatsoever. You have billions and billions of tiny little veins all throughout your body. In fact, all of these veins, many of you may have seen on your Doppler or your MRI that are collateral veins that we talk about. You've always had those veins. You didn't necessarily grow new veins, just smaller veins that became larger. And they help try and shunt blood around the stenosis. So no, you can get your veins stripped and it shouldn't affect your neck.
But then that also brings up the argument that's been used that the collateral veins will take place of the jugular.
Yeah, you know, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. I was just telling Bill this morning about a good friend of mine who had a sarcoma in his hip when he was young, and he had that irradiated, and they had to surgically remove part of it, but in removing that, they had to remove the main vein in his thigh that removes all the blood, or most of the blood, from the leg. And I do venograms on him every once in a while, and I look at his leg, and his leg is just a spider web of other veins, collateral veins, and anybody would look at that and would say, well, goodness, you know, there's got to be enough flow through all of those veins to equal what he used to have. We've also seen this in May Thurner for years. You would think that the body would grow all these veins around the obstruction and it would be the same, but it's never the same. Having that native jugular vein, there's no replacement for it.
Hello. My sister was diagnosed with MS when she turned 40. She's now 51 and she's in long-term care. And she's thinking of maybe waiting for this list in Alberta because she really doesn't want to travel. But she's now at the point where another girl has gone to Mexico and how the treatment and is just improving how she breathes. Everything is just easier, like I've heard here today. Is it still good for my sister, even though she's in long-term care, she can't even feed herself? Is it still worth it for her to get this treatment? And also, the place was Mexico, Tijuana. Is that a good place? I don't know.
Well, first of all, is it still worth it? Am I, who have MS, still worth treating? Absolutely. Some of you will know the story of a woman who was on palliative care. She was on death's door. They flew her down to Albany, and she had treatment. And now she can sit up, talk, swallow, and spend Christmas with her family. 6 weeks later, or roughly. Because, you know, and I've had friends' inability to swallow. Then if you can't control your swallowing, then you breathe in your food and you die of aspiration pneumonia, which is how most of us with MS will die. Same as a stroke. Okay? However, if you have optimal venous angioplasty and get that swallowing back and that thinking back and the ability to communicate back, that is a huge improvement in quality of life. Sure, it's a long road and it's an unpredictable one, how much effort you're going to have to get your arms and legs back. But if we will put feeding tubes in people, and we do, and if we will put them in an institution and everybody says they won't die on my watch, which they do, why shouldn't we treat folks palliatively and reverse that process? We owe it to them to restore their human dignity. And the step before that is when now you're in an institution because either you can't transfer or you don't have bowel and bladder control. And the family wears out. Because the family wears out in Canada first. And even then, you know, when a caregiver starts to get sick or the caregiver crashes, you're toast. So no, we still need to treat these people. We need to get at it, and we need to get at it here. But it's going to be tricky. And these folks, I'll be really honest, they're probably going to have to go somewhere else. Because when you start to create lists in Canada, because we're going to create lists, gosh, we've got lists for hip replacements, knee replacements, whatever, waiting lists. If I'm at end stage MS, or I've got secondary, primary progressive MS, and it's pretty bad already, they're going to treat the young person who's still working. And probably they should. So it's going to be a while till we get to the palliative care center, or we're going to get to the institution to look at people, and everybody's going to say, well, we shouldn't do that. But we move heaven and earth. If someone in that institution has a stroke or a heart attack, how is this fair? It's not. And, you know, are those hand splints?
No, they're just...
Okay, they're gloves. Well, they make me think of my sister with her hand splints. And I don't know if anybody in this room has arthritis in their hands as well as their MS. Anybody? Because it does happen. And when my sister saw the neurologist who had trained extensively in Israel, she had found that many people with multiple sclerosis get problems in their hands. So she wears splints all the time. She has terrible pain in her hands. The day after her venous angioplasty in Newport Beach, it was gone. Been there 3 years. It's all about blood flow, folks. And some of the arthritides, and you know, the osteoarthritis, and some of these things are lack of blood flow. And if you improve the blood flow to the autonomic control center, and you get that vasodilation, or bigger vessels, that's why you turn warm, then it may well supply that. So apparently that's fairly common in MS that you see that. So we need to broaden our horizons.
I just want to clarify, I didn't mean that my sister shouldn't have the treatment because she's far, just that will it help her still? Will she be able to get benefit?
Well, there are no guarantees, but I suspect strongly that it'll make a difference. And I think as of early May, WestJet's got a direct flight. Calgary to John Wayne.
Calgary.
And I would go there. And that's where I would go. Because, you know, Dr. Hewitt, Narada, and his team are willing to see people with challenges.
So
Because
John,
it's tough. Everything's tougher when you're transferring and moving and everything else. So it's not going to be easy.
John Wayne is the airport.
John Wayne is the airport in Costa Mesa, which is about 4 miles from Synergy or Pacific Interventional Clinic. Maybe it's 3 miles, I don't know. I could find it in a car, which is easy. It's a good sign. Over here, where's our attractive woman with the mic? Pick it up.
Take it